What's up, guys? Welcome back to Jackpot MMA. Today, we're looking at UFC 330, Islam Makhachev versus Ian Machado Garry. Big event coming up. Very excited for this weekend. As you can see, I got cooked by Billy Quarantillo. He just came out and did not really want to fight, did not want to put his hands up per normal, and he kind of just got his ass whooped. So yeah, that missed. That was a bad miss. I did have this one on the right. Could have paid more, but I cashed out before South killed because for some reason I let the people convince me that Gamrot had a chance. But we still made a little bit on that, and plus 139 profit overall. I only missed two picks, Richie Miranda and Billy Quarantillo, and that's pretty good. I'll take it, 10 for 12. So yeah, let's get on with the picks. All right, in the main event, we got Islam versus Ian Garry. To me, this is a no-brainer. And for some reason, people are picking Ian Garry, and some people are even picking him by finish, which I think is out of this world. That is insane. You really think that Islam Makhachev is going to lose to this guy, and especially by finish? There's no way in hell that is going to happen. Islam will win this fight, and I think he will win by sub. And on the off chance that Ian Garry somehow wins, it will not be by finish. So I just want to clarify for the people that are trying to say that he will be able to finish Islam. 1000% sure that is not going to happen. Besides that, I think that this line is honestly not wide enough. I think that Islam should be negative 450. But, I like the odds. I will be picking Islam. I don't know why people are so high on Ian Garry. People like Kunith and MMA Casual, those are creators that I follow pretty closely because they're very profitable. But I think people are getting out of hand here and trying to be too smart and too sharp and pick the underdog because historically this year we've seen so many upsets, and they're just going to try and call this shot. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think that Islam makes this look easy and wins this by finish. So give me Islam Makhachev to defend the belt and win by submission. All right, next fight, we got Mackenzie Dern versus Jillian Robertson in the co-main. This is one of my favorite picks of the card with Mackenzie Dern at 235. I think that she's a lock. I mean, Jillian, the only thing she's probably better at is offensive wrestling. But, even if Mackenzie Dern gets on her back, that's where she's comfortable. So even if Jillian does get the wrestling going, that's just taking Mackenzie to where she wants to be. So honestly, I think Mackenzie can win this fight however she wants to. I think it'll be pretty easy for her, and I will have it in all of my slips. So, yeah, give me Mackenzie Dern by decision, I want to say. All right, next fight, we got Jose Ochoa versus Charles Johnson. Now, I think the line is a little too wide here. Charles Johnson, I understand that sometimes when he comes out, he does not throw as much as you want him to, especially if you're betting on him and he just kind of sits there and fucks about and doesn't really get started until the third round when it's too fucking late. And I know I understand all of the annoyance with that. But the thing is, he has a win over Loner Kavanaugh in his last 5, while Jose Ochoa has a loss to him. And it's like, you look at their record, they both have a loss to Asu Amabayev, which is understandable. But Charles Johnson beat Bruno Silva, and Ochoa has a win over Durden and Carpenter, but I don't know. I value that Kavanaugh win pretty highly, and I feel like he has a good IQ, and the stylistic matchup of this fight does not favor Johnson, being that Ochoa does like the pressure and he does like to start quick, but depending on what kind of Charles Johnson we see, I could see Ochoa getting dropped and finished. Honestly, I mean, it's very possible, but obviously he does not have any record of being finished in the UFC, so it's risky, and I understand why he's the favorite, but again, I don't see why he is this much of a favorite. So I will be picking Charles Johnson. I'm gonna pick Charles Johnson by knockout. I'm not gonna bet this. I might bet it in maybe a 3 pick or a 2 pick just with some underdogs. But honestly, this is just a call I'm making just based off of their record and Charles Johnson's ability to start prospects. So yeah, let me take Charles Johnson here to win by knockout. All right, next fight we got Mansur Abdulmalik versus Dustin Stoltzfus. Now, I'm a Dustin Stoltzfus guy. I like him. You know, he likes to go out there and he will slug. You know, I remember him fighting with Marc Andre Barrio and he got that knockout, and I was like, wow, this guy is a marauder for sure. But you know, he's not looking great in his last few fights. Coming off of two decision losses, both unanimous to Rizzy Boyev and Gastelum, which I guess those aren't terrible losses, but you know, coming into a fight against a just a killer in Mansur Abdulmalik, I don't see how he does not get chinned here. He could potentially take it to a decision, but I don't see how he wins at all, honestly. But I will not be parlaying this. I will not be picking Mansur Abdulmalik because just because of the history. You know, he comes out and sometimes he doesn't perform up to the caliber we expect him to. So he's kind of a risky guy. But I understand the line here with the record that they're both their past 5 fights. Stoltzfus, is kind of chinny. So I expect him to get knocked out here, honestly. But I wouldn't be surprised if it somehow goes to decision. And I also would not be surprised if, for whatever fucking reason, Mansur Abdulmalik decides to lose this fight. But yeah, I'll be taking him to win by knockout. So yeah, Mansur Abdulmalik by KO. All right, next we got Edson Barboza versus Esteban Ribovic. This is kind of just sad to see this happen. I think Esteban Ribovic is probably going to KO Mr. Barboza here. He's coming off of a knockout loss to Jalen Turner, and despite his physique, he's not performing as Edson Barboza normally did. He looks great, but he's not fighting great as of late. That was a bar right there. But yeah, Ribovic coming off of a submission to Gamrot, but he also has wins over McKinney and Zellhuber and Brenner, which are like all kind of mid. But yeah, I think he should be able to win this. I don't know if it'll be a knockout, but it will be a win for Ribovic most likely, just because of the way Barboza's been fighting. He has not been looking good, man. He's just been looking like a zombie. So yeah, we'll take Ribovic by decision, in my opinion, potentially a knockout. But yeah. All right, next fight we got Chitty Bang Bang versus Yo Alvarez. This is an interesting fight here. Chitty is he's a tough dude, and he comes forward and he throws well. He's got very good Muay Thai. But besides that, I mean, he's kind of one dimensional and he is vulnerable to submissions. And as we know, Yo Alvarez is good all over, and he can wrap up submission. He can wrap up a rear naked. We saw him, wrap up a Darce choke against Mark Diakese, and I could see him, getting into that position here, honestly. But it's going to be a good fight regardless. Chitty does have, potential to land some stuff on the feet if it stays on the feet. But I think that Yoel is just too young and he's in his prime, and I think he'll have overall more weapons in this fight. So I'll be taking Yoel Alvarez by submission. All right, next fight here we got Jalen Turner versus Kai Fernandez. Kai Fernandez coming off of that win against Harry Hardwick, the Glass Man. I don't value that win at all. He does have a win against Garam Kutaledze, and I value that win. I think Garam is pretty good. Does have a loss to Mark Diakese, which is questionable. Obviously, Jalen is coming off of that KO win against Edson Barboza after coming back from retirement. Has losses to Ignacio Bahamondes and Moicano, but has a win against Bobby Green and went to a very competitive split decision with Dan Hooker. So he has fought way better competition in comparison to Fernandez, So the record is a bit deceiving here. But I think Jalen Turner will make it look easy. I think he'll keep it on the feet and use his height and length to his advantage and probably piece up Kai Fernandez and knock him out in the second round. So, yeah, I'll be taking Jalen Turner by knockout. All right, next fight on the card, we got Dante Johnson, who is 8-0, coming in against Eric McConaughey. Dante Johnson is undersized to be at middleweight. I think he would even be undersized to be at welterweight. But the thing is, he is just such a ball of muscle that he makes up for it. And he's been training with people like Sean Strickland, Anthony Hernandez, Chris Curtis. He's been training with very good people in Las Vegas. And Eric McConaughey is not bad at all, but he just doesn't have as many tools as Dante Johnson has. Dante Johnson can mix in the wrestling. Dante Johnson can knock you out cold. Um, and McConico is just not getting as much of, high level training as Dante Johnson has been getting lately. And I think that Dante Johnson will knock him out. So yeah, that's the official pick. Dante Johnson by knockout. All right, next fight we got Vicente Luque versus Tresean Gore. Vicente Luque obviously, has been around for a long time. He was heavily feared at one point, putting people out cold a lot, but then he had that incident where he quit, and everybody just hates him now. But I think that he will win here, just because Tresean Gore really does not. He's kind of mid. He has that loss to Brundage and Tulio and Vieira, and Tulio's all right, but he missed weight against Rodolfo Vieira and still lost that fight. And he has that good win he's coming off of against Osmat Bikoyev with that guillotine, and that honestly is really his only weapon. And I think that's the only way he can win this fight. I think that Vicente Luque will dictate the pace here. If he wants to keep it on the feet, he will, and if it stays on the feet, he will outstrike Tresean Gore and potentially knock him out. But if he wants to, mix in the grappling, he can do that as well, and he does have better jiu-jitsu overall. So I just think that Vicente has better tools with leg kicks and the grappling and the striking in general. So I will be taking Luque to win here, and I don't have a method, just Vicente Luque to win. All right, next fight here we got Rafael Tobias versus Lucas Fernando. Tobias had a decent win in Contender Series, got a decent submission. He has decent BJJ, had a pretty I just wanted to include this here. This is this is one of the guys that Rafael Tobias had got a win over, and of course it was a while ago. It was like 3 years ago, but I was just looking through his Tapology record, and I thought this was hilarious. Like, who is this guy, Geraldo Mosquito, with the guns, the two Uzis just blaring, like 1-3, and he has fights in 2011, 2012, had a 3-year hiatus, came back, and then had a 7-year hiatus just to come back and then lose by a key lock. I don't know. That's weird. Very interesting. Very interesting fight there. But he has that's just confirming my suspicions as to his record being questionable. So yeah, I'm gonna be taking Lucas Fernando by knockout. I think he makes it look pretty easy. All right, next fight we got Neil Magny versus Ramiz Brahimaj. This one scares me a little bit, just because Magny obviously has been known to spoil fights. Um, Brahimaj has wins over Mickey Gall, Billy Ray Goff, and Austin Vanderford, which all of those are not very good wins. I guess you could say the Vanderford win is okay, but and then he has a loss to Punahele Soriano. I don't think that Brahimaj is that good, but I don't know. Neil Magny obviously is getting old and is only coming off of wins to like dudes like Jake Matthews, and I don't know. His losses that he's had recently are not that bad. Obviously, he's getting put out by people like Yaroslav Amasov and Carlos Prates and Michael Morales, and it's like, what the hell? Give him somebody that's not as deadly. And Ramiz Brahimaj is not that deadly. He's obviously very good with his submissions, but I don't know. I don't know. This one worries me. I don't know who to pick here, honestly, and I'm I'm worried about this one. But just because of the age, I will be picking Brahimaj, just because I think he will be quicker, and I'm hoping that he'll be able to land a takedown and wrap up a submission. But if Neil Magny spoils me, I would not be surprised. So Brahimaj is the pick by submission. All right, next fight here we got Jeremiah Wells versus Miktikbek Odulbai. Jeremiah Wells coming off of that upset win against Demba Garimbo. I remember that vividly because I bet against him, but I don't think this is going to be close at all. Obviously, the line is very wide for a reason. Odulbai only has one loss in the UFC, or one loss in general, and that was, or I guess he has one more, but he has one loss in the UFC, and that was to make Mateus Rebecki, and that was a very close fight. But I think Orobai won that fight overall just based off of damage and the takedowns he was landing, and I think it was a robbery. But still not a bad loss to have. Rebecca's a good fighter, while Jeremiah Wells is not very great, and he's losing to people like Max Griffin and Carlston Harris. So yeah, this is going to be an absolute layup. I don't know why Orobai is fighting a dude like this, but I'll be taking Orobai by KO. Orobai by KO. All right, guys, here are the official picks. If you are betting on this card, I would play it safe. I would parlay something like, I think Orobai by finish is easy. I don't know what the odds are going to be by that, but if it's something that you think is viable, you can put that in there. I think Jalen Turner's a good leg. I think that Rebovich is a good leg. I think that Mackenzie Dern is a lock, and I also think that Islam Makhachev is a lock. So, do with that what you will. If you want to parlay Johnson and Alvarez as well, you can. I think Alvarez is also probably a good leg. But everybody, play it safe, and I hope everybody does well if you do bet on this. Thank you guys for watching, and until the next card.